So besides the fact that it's almost an out-of-date concept now, and I'll get to that shortly, I am flummoxed by the sheer lack of digital-first thinking when it comes to areas of design, marketing, brand, and media. In this week's video, I'm going to give examples of what I mean by digital-first thinking, talk about why still thinking analog is such an issue, and hopefully give you a bit of a guide on how to shift your thinking towards the digital because, well, it's almost obsolete anyway.
Screw you, your internet thing is sold last year.
My name is Tara, and this is Truly Strategic. For many years, advertisers, media companies, producers, and so on would take something that was created in the analog world, an ad, a TV show, a movie, a logo, brochure, a book, whatever, and they would adapt it to digital, which really meant upload it and try to recreate the analog form into digital media.
How lame is that?
It's pretty lame.
Now, this posed a problem in a few ways. The web, being the most prominent digital platform, was and is a read-write medium, and because the audience expected interaction, the one-way signals of the analog content would fall flat.
Boring!
Another way this is problematic is that digital platforms display media and content in extreme variations. So a website formatted to look like a brochure, for instance, would look fine on one screen but completely break on another. Once you add in mobile platforms, you get the picture. So people started talking about this digital-first design and thinking for very good reason. More and more of the audience was and still is consuming more and more media online and on mobile.
Have you guys checked the comments?
So it makes sense to design digital and mobile first. But that's design. What about the thinking part? How does digital thinking versus analog thinking work? As a very rough definition, I'd say that digital thinking is when you think about the digital experience of the customer first. In order to make this more clear, here are simple examples that illustrate the difference between analog and digital first. Simple example number one, naming something.
I just registered the domain name for my campaign website. Jack Donaghy is running for mayor 2013, New York. This is the website.com.
In the past few years, I've encountered this scenario multiple times and in multiple industries. I come into a bigger project where someone has named a new product without doing a basic Google search for the name to see what comes up, or number two, quickly looking up social handles, for which, by the way, there are lots of sites that will tell you whether the handles are available across every single platform or not. Now, they may have already done a trademark search, but that doesn't mean that the name is available. Pretty much every time I brought these questions up, it led to the team having to go back to the drawing board to find a new name. Having a single digital person in that process would have raised those concerns early on.
What's the hashtag gonna be? Boss bitch or bitch boss?
Yeah, it's Psycho Boss.
I don't hate that.
Simple example number two, content creation. So I'm standing here talking directly into a camera and indirectly but intentionally talking directly to you, the audience. I'm talking to you in a way that expects, well, that you'll eventually talk back. That's one of the amazing and unique things about creating content for digital platforms. It's read-write, an ongoing iterative dialogue. In the analog media world, this interaction, me talking to the camera, was called breaking the fourth wall, and it was a technique that was generally rare. Think of Ferris Bueller's Day Off.
Life moves pretty fast.
Digital content flips this around entirely. Now, it's rare not to address the audience directly. It kind of feels old-fashioned, cold, unwebby. Thinking digital means that content assumes the read-write ability of the medium.
I want only positive feedback, please.
So as you can see, this is an issue all around. If you're still thinking analog, you'll miss the way that digital has changed interfaces, interactions, and even how we think of naming stuff. But even worse, guess what? If you thought the switch to multi-operating systems, browsers, and mobile screwed things up for analog types, wait until the following interfaces take over. Voice, augmented reality, gesture-based interactions. How about when we implant the technology and we are part of the interface?
Are you from the Matrix?
Yes.
Now, I love my analog experiences as much as the next person, but the reality is that anyone designing or interacting with an audience in the future will have to shed their analog first approach. I know this is easier said than done. I've been thinking digitally since the early 90s, so it's made me a bit of a digital native in that aspect. But having been born in the 70s, I can relate enough to offer some guidance.
I don't have to listen to you.
Get interested in what the kids are into. Seek to understand how and why they're interacting in certain ways. This doesn't mean that you should get your brand on TikTok. I'm not talking about bandwagons or trends. What I'm talking about is taking the time to figure out what makes this interaction so popular. And ask yourself, how might that interaction be changing the audience's expectations into the future?
Nobody uses VCRs anymore.
Make lists of new things you should take into consideration when embarking on a project, like looking up social handles and search results, and a list of interfaces that you should consider when creating experiences. This stuff is just going to continue to change and update and emerge. Being analog in a digital world is no longer quaint and hipster. It's a liability for the future of your business. Listen, the internet just turned 30, guys. There's no longer an excuse.
Isn't it about time you went digital?
Speaking of no excuse, I'm a middle-aged woman who makes videos like this. I've actually made over 200 of them, in fact. So feel free to keep watching for others and subscribe for what's to come. My name is Tara, and this has been Truly Strategic.